What happens when Hollywood's sweetheart meets daytime television's most controversial host, and things go so wrong that it ends with a dramatic walk-off that nobody saw coming? You're about to witness one of the most explosive moments in live television history. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below, because this story will leave you absolutely speechless. The morning started like any other at the View Studios in New York. Sandra Bullock had arrived early for what was supposed to be a light-hearted promotional interview for her latest film. She sat in the green room, sipping coffee and reviewing her talking points with her publicist, completely unaware that she was about to become part of television history. "Sandra, we're so excited to have you here," Whoopi Goldberg said, as the cameras began rolling. "Your new movie sounds incredible. Tell us about it." Sandra smiled warmly, her natural charm immediately filling the studio. "Thank you for having me, Whoopi. This film has been such a passion project. It's about second chances, about how we can reinvent ourselves even when life throws us the most unexpected curveballs." "That sounds beautiful," Sarah Haynes chimed in. "What drew you to this particular story?" "Well, I think we all go through moments where we feel like we've hit rock bottom," Sandra explained, her voice carrying genuine emotion. "This character reminded me that it's never too late to change your path, to choose kindness over bitterness, to build bridges instead of burning them." The conversation was flowing naturally, the audience clearly captivated by Sandra's authenticity. But Joy Behar had been unusually quiet, her eyes narrowing as she listened to Sandra's responses. Something about the actress's words seemed to irritate her, though the reason wasn't immediately clear to viewers. "Speaking of building bridges," Joy finally interjected, her tone already carrying an edge that made everyone at the table tense up slightly. "I have to ask about your recent comments regarding the entertainment industry. Some people might say you're being a bit naive about how Hollywood really works." Sandra's smile faltered for just a moment, caught off guard by the sudden shift in tone. "I'm not sure what you're referring to, Joy. Could you be more specific?" "Oh, come on," Joy pressed, leaning forward with a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. "The whole everyone can change narrative. It's very sweet, very idealistic. But don't you think some people are just fundamentally selfish? Some people never change because they don't want to change?" The studio fell silent. Whoopi shifted uncomfortably in her seat, clearly sensing that Joy was going somewhere with this that had nothing to do with Sandra's movie. The audience picked up on the tension too, the earlier warm atmosphere now replaced with an uncomfortable electricity. "I believe in the capacity for growth," Sandra replied carefully, maintaining her composure despite the obvious hostility. "I think when people are given the chance to reflect and learn from their mistakes, most choose to do better." "Most," Joy repeated with a bitter laugh. "But not all. Some people just double down on their worst instincts. They hide behind their success and pretend they're victims, when really they're the ones causing all the problems." Now everyone at the table was looking at Joy with concern. This wasn't typical interview behavior, even for The View's famously confrontational format. Something personal was driving this attack, and Sandra was clearly trying to figure out what she had stumbled into. "Joy," Whoopi attempted to intervene, "maybe we should talk about Sandra's upcoming projects." But Joy was just getting started. "No. I think this is important. Sandra talks about second chances and redemption. But what about accountability? What about the people who get hurt along the way while someone is supposedly finding themselves?" Sandra's publicist was frantically gesturing from the side of the stage, but Sandra held her ground. "I absolutely believe in accountability," she said firmly. "But I also believe that holding on to anger and resentment ultimately hurts us more than it helps. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing bad behavior. It means choosing not to let that behavior define our own response. How convenient, Joy shot back, her voice rising slightly. Easy to say when you're sitting pretty with your perfect career and your perfect life. Some of us have to deal with the real consequences of other people's choices. The tension in the studio was now palpable. Camera operators were unsure whether to keep filming or cut away. The audience sat in stunned silence, witnessing what felt like a deeply personal confrontation playing out under the guise of a promotional interview. Joy, I'm not sure what this is about, Sandra said, her voice steady, but with a hint of steel creeping in. But if you have something specific you'd like to discuss, maybe we should do it privately, rather than using your platform to attack someone who came here in good faith. Good faith, Joy repeated mockingly. That's rich. You want to talk about good faith? Let's talk about how some people in this industry smile to your face while stabbing you in the back. Let's talk about how some people build their careers on stepping on others, and then have the audacity to preach about kindness and second chances. The other hosts exchanged worried glances. This had clearly gone way beyond a normal interview disagreement. Joy was airing some kind of personal grievance, and Sandra Bullock had become an unwitting target for what seemed like years of pent-up frustration and anger. Sandra took a deep breath, clearly trying to maintain her professionalism in the face of Joy's increasingly erratic behavior. Joy, I came here to talk about my film and connect with your audience. I'm not sure what personal issues you're dealing with, but this isn't the appropriate forum to work them out. Personal issues? Joy's voice cracked with indignation. You want to talk about personal issues? How about we talk about your so-called humanitarian work? How about we discuss how you use charity events as photo opportunities, while some of us are actually trying to make a difference in the world? The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Sonny Hostin's mouth was literally hanging open, while Alyssa Farah Griffin stared at Joy as if seeing her for the first time. That's completely out of line, Sandra replied, her composure finally beginning to crack. My charitable work is something I take very seriously, and I don't appreciate you questioning my motives without any basis in fact. Without basis? Joy laughed harshly. I've been in this business for decades, sweetheart. I know how the game is played. I know how people like you operate. You show up to a few galas, write a check for the tax deduction, and suddenly you're Mother Teresa. People like me? Sandra's voice was now ice cold. What exactly does that mean, Joy? Joy. It means people who think they're better than everyone else, Joy snapped. People who waltz around acting like they're above the fray while the rest of us are down here fighting in the trenches. You sit there talking about forgiveness and second chances like you're some kind of guru. But where was that forgiveness when people needed it from you? The studio had gone completely silent except for the hum of cameras and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. Everyone seemed frozen, watching this train wreck unfold in real time. Production assistants were frantically trying to get the attention of the show's producers, but nobody seemed to know how to stop what was happening. I have no idea what you're talking about, Sandra said slowly, each word carefully measured. But I think you need to explain yourself, or apologize for these baseless accusations. Apologize? Joy's voice rose to nearly a shout. You want me to apologize? That's perfect. That's exactly the kind of entitled attitude I'm talking about. You come on my show, you sit at my table, and you expect me to just smile and nod while you promote your little feel-good movie about redemption? It's not your show, Joy. Whoopi finally interjected, her voice carrying the authority of the show's moderator. And Sandra is our guest. You need to dial it back right now. But Joy was beyond listening to reason. Something had snapped, some internal dam had burst, and years of resentment were flooding out all at once. Don't tell me what to do. Whoopee. I've been carrying this show for years, while everyone else gets the credit. I'm the one who asks the tough questions. I'm the one who's not afraid to call out hypocrisy when I see it. What hypocrisy? Sandra demanded, her own anger now clearly visible. What exactly are you accusing me of? Because if you have something to say, then say it clearly, instead of hiding behind these vague insinuations. Joy stood up abruptly, her chair rolling backward with the force of the movement. The action was so sudden that it caused a collective gasp from the audience. You want me to be clear? Fine. I'll be crystal clear. I'm tired of watching people like you get praised for doing the bare minimum, while people like me get criticized for telling the truth. I'm tired of this fake niceness, this manufactured sweetness that covers up the fact that Hollywood is still the same cutthroat business it's always been. Sit down, Joy, Sarah Haynes pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. No, Joy said firmly, pointing an accusatory finger at Sandra. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of smiling and playing nice while people who don't deserve it get elevated to saint status. You want to talk about your movie? Let's talk about how you probably stepped on a dozen other actresses to get that role. Let's talk about how you've benefited from a system that rewards people for looking a certain way and saying the right things. Sandra stood up as well now, her patience finally exhausted. I don't know what your problem is, but I won't sit here and let you attack my character based on whatever personal demons you're dealing with. This is completely unprofessional and frankly embarrassing for everyone involved. Embarrassing? Joy repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You think I'm embarrassing? That's hilarious coming from someone who built her career on playing the girl next door while probably being anything but behind closed doors. The accusation was so personal and so completely unfounded that it left everyone stunned. Even Joy seemed to realize she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But instead of backing down, she doubled down, her face flushed with anger and something that looked almost like desperation. You know what the real problem is? Joy continued, her voice shaking now. The real problem is that people like you get to coast through life being celebrated for your supposed goodness, while people like me get labeled as difficult for speaking the truth. Well, I'm done being the bad guy, just because I refuse to participate in the fantasy. Nobody asked you to be anything other than professional, Sandra replied, her voice steady despite her obvious anger. But what you're doing right now isn't truth-telling. It's just cruelty, disguised as honesty. The words hit Joy like a physical blow. Her face contorted with rage, and for a moment, it looked like she might actually lunge across the table at Sandra. The security guards positioned around the studio shifted nervously, unsure whether they needed to intervene. Cruelty disguised as honesty? Joy's voice was now trembling with fury. You want to see cruelty? Cruelty is watching people get ahead in this business, not because of their talent, but because they know how to play the game. Cruelty is watching the system reward fake humility while punishing authentic voices. Sandra shook her head in disbelief. Joy, you don't even know me. You're attacking someone based on assumptions and projecting whatever anger you're carrying onto a complete stranger. That's not authentic. That's just sad. The word sad seemed to break something fundamental in Joy. Her face went white, then flushed red, and her hands began to shake visibly. Sad? She repeated, her voice now barely controlled. You think I'm sad? I've been in this business since before you were even relevant. I've earned my place here through decades of hard work, Not through playing some sweet little character that audiences fall in love with. Nobody's questioning your place here. Whoopi tried to interject again, but Joy was completely beyond reason now. Yes, they are, Joy shouted, spinning around to face her co-hosts. Everyone questions my place here. Every review, every article, every stupid social media post. I'm always the one who's too harsh, too difficult, too much. Well, you know what? Maybe I am too much for this sanitized version of television where we're all supposed to pretend everything is wonderful. Sandra watched this meltdown with a mixture of concern and bewilderment. Joy. This isn't about television or the industry. This sounds like you're dealing with something much deeper than anything happening here today. Don't psychoanalyze me, Joy snapped, whirling back to face Sandra. You don't get to sit there in your perfect little bubble and tell me what my problems are. You don't know what it's like to fight for every opportunity, to claw your way up in a world that wants you to shut up and smile. Actually, I do know what that's like, Sandra replied quietly. Every woman in this industry knows what that's like. But taking out your frustrations on other women isn't fighting the system. It's just perpetuating it. The observation hit Joy like a slap in the face. For a moment, her anger seemed to waver, replaced by something that looked almost like recognition. But instead of backing down, she seemed to sink deeper into her fury, as if acknowledging the truth of Sandra's words would be too painful to bear. You think you're so wise, Joy said, her voice now dripping with venom. You think you have all the answers because you've managed to stay popular and relevant. Well, let me tell you something about staying relevant in this business. Sometimes it means being willing to be the villain. Sometimes it means saying the things other people are too scared to say. And sometimes, Sandra replied with devastating calm, it just means being needlessly cruel to people who don't deserve it. That was the final straw. Joy's face contorted with pure rage, and she grabbed her microphone pack and yanked it off with such force that the wire snapped. You know what? I'm done. I'm done with this show. I'm done with pretending to care about the opinions of people who wouldn't last 5 minutes in the real world. And I'm especially done with being lectured by someone whose biggest challenge is deciding which charity gala to attend. The studio erupted in chaos. Producers were frantically trying to decide whether to cut to commercial. Audience members were gasping and murmuring, and the other hosts sat in stunned silence as Joy continued her tirade. I quit, Joy announced, her voice carrying across the entire studio. I'm done being the lightning rod for this show's controversy, while everyone else gets to play it safe. I'm done being the bad guy, just because I'm willing to ask the questions nobody else will ask. Joy, please, Sunny Hostin finally found her voice. Just sit down and let's work this out. You're having a moment. But we can fix this. A moment? Joy laughed bitterly. This isn't a moment. This is years of frustration finally coming to the surface. I've spent decades watching this industry reward mediocrity while punishing honesty, and I'm not going to pretend anymore that it's okay. Sandra stood up slowly, her dignity intact despite the chaos swirling around her. Joy, I genuinely hope you get the help you need. But what just happened here wasn't honesty. It was an unprovoked attack on someone who came here in good faith. That's not brave or authentic. It's just wrong. Joy stared at Sandra for a long moment, her chest heaving with emotion. For just an instant, something flickered across her face that might have been shame or regret. But it was quickly replaced by defiant anger. Save your sympathy, Joy spat. I don't need help from someone who thinks forgiveness solves everything. Some things can't be forgiven, and some people don't deserve second chances. With that, she turned and stormed off the set, leaving behind her notes, her coffee mug, and 22 years of television history. The cameras continued to roll as the remaining hosts sat in shocked silence, the audience unsure whether to applaud or remain quiet. Sandra slowly sat back down, visibly shaken but maintaining her composure. "I'm sorry your audience had to witness that," she said quietly to Whoopi. "That was clearly about something much bigger than anything I said or did here today." Whoopi nodded slowly, still processing what had just happened. "Sandra, on behalf of the show, I apologize. That was completely unacceptable, and you handled it with more grace than anyone should have to." The studio remained eerily quiet as producers finally made the decision to cut to commercial, ending one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history. Joy Behar had walked away from The View in the most dramatic fashion possible, leaving behind a legacy tarnished by her final, unforgivable outburst. What did you think of this explosive confrontation? Was Joy completely out of line? Or did she have a point buried beneath all that anger? Subscribe for more shocking television moments, and comment below with your thoughts on what really drove Joy to this breaking point.